Thank you for listening to this PodcastOne production. Available on Apple Podcasts and PodcastOne.
This episode of the Steve Austin Show is brought to you free today by our friends at BetOnline.ag. As we roll into the end of June, the sports action continues to heat up with Major League Baseball, the UFC, Major League Soccer, and now the Women's World Cup. Get in the mix at BetOnline.ag and use the promo code PodcastOne for your 50% welcome bonus. BetOnline.ag, your online sportsbook experts and exclusive partner of PodcastOne Sportsnet. And hey, man, while you're online, you should get your car insurance figured out. Go to Geico.com, and in 15 minutes, you could be saving 15% or more on car insurance. That's right. Save hundreds of dollars on car insurance at Geico.com. Extra money in your pocket? It may just be the most rewarding thing you do today.
The following program is a PodcastOne.com production.
From Hollywood, California, by way of the Broken Skull Ranch, this is the Steve Austin Show.
Give me a hell yeah.
Hell yeah!
Now, here's Steve Austin.
All right, everybody, welcome to Steve Austin Show. I am coming to you from the mean streets of Los Angeles, California today. I'm sitting here at 316 Gimmick Street, and we're about to open up a can of audio whoop-ass. As my guest today is WWE Hall of Famer Mark Henry. Man, I think I'll tell you a little bit of the story in the podcast, but I was over here at the house at 316 Gimmick Street, and I get this text message that says, "Hey, man, do you want to talk to Earl Campbell?" I texted back, "Who is this?" Texted back, "Mark Henry." I call him up on the phone. We start shooting the breeze. One thing leads to another. Mark lives down in Austin, Texas, where Earl lives. And I had been planning a trip to Austin, Texas for quite a few weeks to reconnect with a family member and go check out a couple of cars that I'd found down there. So I said, "Hey, man, I'm coming down to Austin, Texas." I said, "Is that where you're at?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, "Would you do my podcast?" So we worked out the details. I flew down to Austin, Texas. I did his radio show, Busted Open, with him and Dave LaGreca, and had a great time. And then, man, we rolled sound on my podcast and started shooting the breeze and just having a good time. I've known Mark for 20 years, and I've seen him in buildings, for I don't know how long, but I've never really had a long, in-depth conversation with the man. And I sat down, and man, I'll tell you what, talking with Mark Henry is a real interesting experience because, man, this guy is so articulate and he's such a great storyteller and he's very engaging. And I tell you what, man, when he starts telling stories, and he told many that I've never heard before, and so it was fascinating. So I'm asking questions, and it was a short-term prep. When you're dealing with a guy like Mark Henry, who's literally, for a shoot, one of the strongest human beings to ever walk planet Earth. He's in the top 3, if not the top 2, if he's not the top 1. That's how strong this guy is. And I never realized that until I really started looking at what he's accomplished. And every bit of it has been 100% drug-free. So anyway, you sit there and start talking to Mark Henry, and I wanted to cover everything, but he's done so much in the world of weightlifting, in the world of powerlifting, in the world of sports entertainment, a career of over 20 years. But the best thing about this thing is we get into some of that. We'll get into a lot of that. But just when Mark goes into storytelling mode, man, and you'll notice later on in the podcast, maybe midway through, I'll kind of start just laying out because Mark's kind of like a locomotive once he starts talking, man. If he's talking about something, he's really into it. You can just feel the energy and passion coming out. You really had to be there in person to just feel what I was feeling, but it was very powerful. And the dude can talk and tells great stories. So when you have a guest like that, and some of the knowledge and some of the 411 he's dropping and some of the stories of which I've never heard, which were phenomenal, there's no reason to interrupt that. So I just let Mark talk. And man, we had a great time. And there was a couple of emotional moments in there for him as he was looking back over some of the things that he's done and some of the things that he's encountered. And it was just, it was a real neat experience. I could have talked to Mark Henry for probably 6 hours straight, but his wife called in. He had errands to run. I'd already taken up enough of his day, so we cut it short. But I look forward to getting down to Austin, Texas again and talking with him again about just more stuff and hell, just about shooting the breeze because that guy has so many stories and there's so much to learn from him. It's really unbelievable. And I can understand now why WWE, all these years later, with the Hall of Fame career that he's had, values him so much as a global brand ambassador for WWE because You know, he is one of those guys that is deeply caring and very passionate about helping others. And I know he's very involved with the Special Olympics and many other things like that and giving back. And, man, I'll tell you something. If you ever get in a war or if you ever get in a bind, Mark Henry is one of those guys who you want on your side, because if that man gives you his word, man, he's going down with you, or he's going to be in the fight with you. So it was a great time hanging out with Mark Henry, and you're about to hear that conversation. But before I get to that, when I started talking with Mark, I was like, hey, man, is there a good hotel in town that you would recommend I stay at that would be kind of close to your studio? Because I'm going to go visit a friend of mine from way back, and then we're going to go look at a couple of cars. And Mark recommended to me the South Congress Hotel. So that's where I booked my reservation. And, man, that's quite a scene down there in Austin, Texas. As I was flying down there to Austin, Texas, it was almost like a homecoming, because I was born in Austin, Texas, December 18, 1964. My parents got a divorce. My mom moved down to Victoria, married Ken Williams, and you've heard the story a million times. I hadn't been to Austin, Texas, in I don't know how many years, and the last time I was there, I was working at Frank Irwin Center right there at the University of Texas for the WWE. And so I flew back in there, and it was like, man, it's coming full circle here. And I wanted to get down and see the Stevie Ray Vaughan statue, but I never did. But as I checked into the South Congress Hotel, I said, man, this is kind of a hipster, cool place. And I was in there doing all my research for Mark, put in a bunch of hours. And I called my wife up, and I said, I'm having a hard time getting this podcast together. And she says, why? I said, man, it's kind of short notice. I said, Mark Henry has had one of the most successful weightlifting careers in the history of lifting. And then 20 years of wrestling, and goes into the Hall of Fame. I said, man, it's hard to research a guy like that who's accomplished so much. And she said, man, you're in your head. Just talk to him like you would talk to anybody. Go down and get yourself a drink and just relax. And I said, you know what? I said, that sounds like a good idea, because I'd been holed up in my room there for about 8 hours. So I go down there, and I sit down at the bar. This Ford got busy, and the bartender there was named William. And I said, hey, man, what kind of margarita you make? And he told me about the margarita that he made. And I said, all right, man, sounds good. So I had one, and I said, hey, man, what's your formula? And he kind of told me how he made his margarita. And I said, man, here's how I make mine. Can you kind of float that Grand Marnier on top? I'm not asking you to change your formula, but could you just, float that Grand Marnier on top like I do mine? And he goes, of course. So anyway, to William, the bartender over there at the bar at the South Congress Hotel, man, it was a pleasure drinking with you. You make a badass drink, and there's a lot of bartenders out there that don't want to change their formula. And he didn't totally change up his formula, but he sure was helping me out, and we had a damn good time. I was just sitting there at the bar. He was busy. There was a busy-ass bar. But I got great margaritas for a couple of days while I stayed at that hotel. And if you're looking for a damn good cheeseburger, there's a cafe hooked on next to the South Congress Hotel called the No Say Cafe. And they got a No Say burger in there. It's a double meat cheeseburger. And I got the bacon on there and the half avocado and the French fries. And there's kind of like a mayonnaise type thing there. I would recommend that you also ask for mustard. I did not. And add some ketchup for the fries. What an eating experience. That's the best damn cheeseburger I've had in a long-ass time. So if you're in Austin, Texas, stop by the South Congress Hotel. Ask old William for a Steve Austin-style margarita. He'll float that Grand Marnier for you. He's a class act. And go to the No Say Cafe for lunch, brunch, whatever. And get the No Say burger with the bacon and the avocado on there, because it's a flat-out badass burger. And great French fries. So that's my eating and drinking experience down there in Austin, Texas. And I also got a chance to reconnect with an old family member, and it was a blast hooking up with him as I went down to pick him up at his place in Pflugerville and drove down to down there right outside of Bastrop and looked at a 1955 Buick Special, which was in mint condition, and looked at a 1966 Ford Mustang Coupe. I've always been a fastback kind of guy, but this coupe was just in really, really good shape. picked up both of those things, and I'm having them shipped out to the BSR in Nevada. But I'd like to talk to you more about some of my personal things, but I've got a long podcast here with Mark. We cover some really interesting material, stories I've never heard before. And again, I hope you enjoy this conversation, and you'll notice I lay out towards the end because I'm just listening to Mark tell some badass stories. And without any further ado, let's get to my podcast. Let's get to my interview done there at the iHeart Studios in Austin, Texas, right off Congress. My guest, WWE Hall of Famer, International Sports Hall of Fame inductee, and one of the greatest weightlifters that's ever walked planet Earth, and one of the absolute strongest men to ever be born. My guest, Mark Henry. Hey man, some of us out there have been credit shamed, and it is no good. Credit shamed is when you have less than desirable credit and everyone treats you like a piece of garbage. If you have rough credit, you can't avoid it. Car shopping, denied. Home loan, denied. And if you're applying for a job, guess what? Employers run your credit too. Don't let bad credit keep you down because our sponsor, CreditRepair.com, can help you work to fix it. These guys are America's most recognizable credit repair company. CreditRepair.com has an incredibly knowledgeable team, a patented credit repair process, and relationships with all three credit bureaus. It's like having an inside track to solving your credit report problems. Past members have seen an average score increase of 40 points in 4 months. Go to creditrepair.com/podcast for your free credit diagnosis. An advocate will pinpoint what's hurting your score and ways to improve it. And if you're looking for some expert help, the Steve Austin Show is offering a $50 credit off your first fee to get you started. Go to creditrepair.com/podcast today to get your credit straight, and that's the bottom line. Again, that's creditrepair.com/podcast. Check it out. The end of June only means that the sports action will continue to get hotter throughout the summer in Major League Baseball, the UFC, Major League Soccer, the UFC, and more. In Major League Baseball, the Astros and the Twins are standing tall in the American League, while over in the National League, the Dodgers and the Braves keeping things interesting. Then, over in the UFC, the end of June sees the battle of the heavyweights as Francis Ngannou clashes with Junior Dos Santos. Following that up with the dominant John Jones looking to continue his winning ways against Thiago Santos at UFC 239. There's only one place that has you covered and one place we trust, betonline.ag. Sign up today for a free account at betonline.ag and use the promo code PodcastOne or text BetNow to 238-669 to receive a 50% welcome bonus. That's betonline.ag, your online sportsbook experts and exclusive partners of Podcast One Sportsnet.
This is the Steve Austin Show.
Man, I'm rolling sound. I'm sitting here in Austin, Texas, the city where I was born, December 18, 1964. Yesterday, flew on an airplane in Los Angeles, California, touched down, walked across, get my rent-a-car. It was 92 degrees. I said, man, I'm home and it's hot. I've been in Los Angeles so long, I done turned into a weather sissy. But now I'm sitting 4 feet away from a guy I've always gotten along with. We've always been friends. We don't know each other real well all our times in the dressing room, but you travel with your crew, I travel with mine, and you lasted 20 years. I lasted a couple. And Mark Henry is my guest today, and we're in his studio where he does his show. So explain this setup and tell people where we're at, Mark.
Well, we're at the iHeart Studios in Austin, but I do my show from here on SiriusXM, Busted Open, and David LaGreca and Bully Ray, who you did the show with him before, and Tommy Dreamer and myself, 5 days a week. And right now we got the #1 Apple podcast, and we're going to hold that title as long as we can. But, now that I'm on this one, I think we're going to make a big jump.
Hey, man, here's the thing. I got a short notice. I told this story on Mark's show, but I'm going to tell it here. I was at my house standing in the kitchen, and I got this text message, and it was from a number in Texas, but I did not recognize it. And it said, "You want to talk to Earl Campbell?" And I texted back immediately, who is this? He texted back, Mark Henry. So I picked up the phone and called and said, man, what are you doing? Because I had your number a long time ago, but you changed it. And all of a sudden, like when you say the name Earl Campbell to any of the younger listeners out there, you got to understand, if you're from Texas or if you love football, you know who Earl Campbell is and you respect that name. Dude was an absolute monster. Just a monster of power and speed. He doesn't get credit for being a speed back, but he did have breakaway speed. You get him on the sideline, you wasn't going to run him down. And if you was in front of him, he damn sure was probably going to run over you. And he took pride in the fact that it was going to take, at least two guys.
No corner ever tackled him.
No. And the thing about it was, he was originally a linebacker. But anyway, nonetheless, so I said, okay, how can I talk to Earl Campbell? And I said, well, dude, I'm coming to Austin anyway. I'm looking at a car, and I've got to connect with a family member. I said, would you be on my show? Because I don't want to talk on the radio anymore. And here I can be in person with you. 20 years in the business, a WWE Hall of Famer. We've always been friends. And now to have you on the podcast, and here's the thing. I told Mark, I said, man, this is short notice. When I started looking back at your career from a strength perspective and then from a wrestling perspective, it ain't no easy study.
No.
So, figure
3 different sports.
Yeah.
But, we was talking about Earl Campbell. Like, I remember I ran into you in Brooklyn at SummerSlam year before last, 2 years ago. While I was talking to you, my phone rang, and it was Earl.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, my God, man. Steve, you mind if I take this call? It's Earl Campbell. And he was like, Earl Campbell? And I was like, yeah, my son, looks out for him. And you said, no, go ahead. And then I talked to him for a minute. You sat there and talked to Michael Cole for 30 seconds or however long it took me to get off the phone. And then you said, man, how you know Earl? And I told you about him, my son, and, I probably don't expect you to remember all that. And I said, man, he was like, man, I'm a big fan. Like, he's pretty much the reason I play football. And I was like, wow, I'll have to let him know. And fast forward, now it's 2 years later, and I'm standing on the track with my son and Earl Campbell's son. And I was like, man, you know what, man? I meant to tell your dad the last time I saw him that Steve Austin was a big fan of his, and if I could give you his phone number, y'all can keep up, get in touch. And he said, you know what, man, that'd be cool. My dad, how he loved wrestling. I was like, let's do it. And I said, I'm gonna send him a text right now. And that's when I sent you the text. So it was pretty cool to be able to connect y'all, and I hope that y'all have a good conversation.
We will. And there's so many places to start, and I could go back and because anytime I research a guest, you kind of start off with a Wikipedia page. You read some facts, and then I watch interviews and stuff like that. And I've got 1 million notes done here. And last night, about 10:30, I called my wife, and she goes, how you doing? I said, trying to prep for Mark Henry. This dude has done so many things in his life. I said, I'm going to blow this thing. And I said, she goes, stop. She goes, you're overthinking it. Just talk to him like you would anybody. I said, but he's accomplished so much. He goes, stop it. He goes, go get yourself a drink. It'll be fine. So I want to ask you a question that I've been asked many times. When I left the business of professional wrestling, and I got taken out of context last time I said this, Mark, and it makes me angry when I get taken out of context. I was talking about making an exit from the WWE. I was talking about transitioning out of the business, not trying to get out of the WWE specifically.
Right.
I was talking about wrestling in general. Most of the guys don't have a plan. They just end up, not doing anything or trying to stay in it forever.
Or not doing anything, and while you're not doing anything, spending everything you made till you find something else. By then, you done ran through everything you had. So I didn't want to do that.
And I always tell people, I said, hey, man, bouncing around or running the ropes in a 20-by-20 ring, traveling all over the world, doesn't train you to necessarily do anything in the world. But if you have a following, like you had and like I had, then you can transition out of it. Look at what The Rock did. He's the #1 movie star in the world, and he had his eyes set on that way back in the day and started nurturing that, and look how that worked. But that wasn't my plan. When I had to leave the business, I was depressed for about 3 years and just wasted a lot of time, and I moved out to Los Angeles. Now, that being said, everybody's heard my story. Here we are. We're busted open radio. How'd you segue into radio? Because as we were talking off microphone, you were saying you grew up on radio, listened to a little bitty ass speaker with 3 knobs. So you've always been a radio guy, and now you are on the radio. How did that happen? What prepared you for life after the ring?
You know what? It really didn't prepare me. It was more of we were poor and didn't have TV. And my grandmother had this old radio, like the old-timey looking radios with the 3 knobs on it and the 3 little speakers that looked like a little church window. I grew up listening to baseball games and football games, and there was a guy that was the guy rest his soul, J.P. Williams in Silsbee, Texas, at KKS radio station. He would call a game, and it was like you was there. You could see everything happen. And I was like, man, I want to do that when I grow up. And little did I know that that's something that I would actually get the opportunity to do, because when you're in the car with me driving, probably 90% of the time I'm listening to sports radio, or I'm listening to Howard Stern, or I'm listening to a show of that nature. And that is what drove me to call Dave LaGreca, who is the host of Busted Open 10 years ago. And 10 years ago, I hear this wrestling show. And I was always, this was kayfabe days still. Everybody that was on radio seemed like it was some kind of expose, or they wanted to talk about how to see behind the curtain or something to that effect. And I just hated it. So I turn on the radio and I hear, this is Dave LaGreca, and he was talking about wrestling, but he was talking as a fan of wrestling. Man, these guys, they almost killed themselves, and I go out and I drive 200 miles to watch this show, and then on Sunday I'll drive another 150 miles to see this show, and then I go home, and then I get ready for, my teaching job, which he was teaching at the time, and he was a professor at Rutgers about sports radio. And I was like, wow, this is a pretty cool dude. I'm going to call into his show. And it was the first show of Busted Open. And I met him 2 or 3 times in the last 10 years. And I told him, man, I love radio. And I call into your show because I appreciate you being a fan of the business and you not trying to down the business, that you uplifting the business. And he said, man, you should come on sometime. And I didn't even know I could do that. So I asked the WWE about me doing a radio show, and they were like, you don't have time to do a radio show. And I never asked again. So I knew that, when it was all said and done for me, and I made my mind up to retire from wrestling, that I was going to try to take a stab at it again. So I saw Dave at WrestleMania 3 years ago, and I said, hey, man, I still would like to come on radio with you. And he said, man, let's do it. And we started talking, and here we are now with the best wrestling radio show in the world, and with the most exposure around the world, and #1 on Apple Podcasts, and it's just been a beautiful transition.
How hard was it for you to walk away from the business? Because I go back to an angle you shot. It was when you did the fake retirement and you drilled John Cena, and then you would ultimately retire several years later. And man, I was like, man, you fooled everybody on that night. And I was like, man, I smell a rat. Mark's got to be up to something. There's got to be something. So anyway, you end up doing what you did. But let's talk about the real retirement, and we're kind of working backwards. How hard was it for you to walk away? And did you walk away with just a bunch of injuries, and are you currently in pain?
I'm definitely in pain, and I had my knee fixed. I wrestled for probably the last 4 years with a torn meniscus in 2 places and a reconstructed IT band that came unraveled over the last 10 years. I have stenosis in my back. So I was like, I would wake up in the morning after, a 10-hour day getting ready to wrestle, and then a 3-hour drive after the show. And I would wake up and I would be like a 70-year-old man, 80-year-old man that had abused their body. I said, man, I can't do this no more. And Vince was, I don't know if you had one of them conversations with Vince. You go in, you go, man, you know what, man, it's been a good ride for me. Oh, hell, you're still a young man. You got plenty of time left. And you go in Vince's office. Hell, I came out of there with a 5-year deal. I was like, next time I get ready to retire, when this 5-year contract is over, I'm not going to ask him. I'm just going to disappear. And I got letter after letter like, hey, you going to resign? You going to resign? And I was like, I'm not answering. I'm not talking to nobody. I'm just going to do it. And then finally it got to the point to where I had like 3 or 4 weeks left before my contract expired. And Vince called me in his office and I told him, I was like, man, I gotta go. I can't, my body hurts so bad. I just can't do it no more. And he's like, well, won't you get it fixed and then come back? And I was like, I think I'm just done, man, and he was like, come on, like you got a lot left in you. I know you do. I mean, you too young to go home and sit around and just watch the kids grow up. You can do both. And I said, well, once again, he was like, he convinced me to coming back, but I had told people for almost a year that I was done. And I was like, well, I've been telling everybody that I'm done. And he's like, that's even better. He was like, now everybody expects it. He was like, let's give it to him. You go ahead and retire. And right then we'll reel him back in. And I was like, all right, let's do it. And we sat there and worked it out how we're going to get it done in 3 weeks. That's when the retirement speech came. And it was a real retirement. And, a lot of people don't know me personally, but I'm kind of a thinker and I like to plan stuff out and I write a lot. So I wrote my real retirement as if I was retiring. So what people saw was my retirement. That's the only one that I've done. I didn't do another one afterwards, like a structured retirement, because that was the real deal.
Right. When you walked away from the business, did you miss it?
I still miss it. Really? I missed the locker room. I missed the drives where I mentored a lot of guys.
Yeah, you did.
From Randy Orton and Bobby Lashley and Batista and all those guys that came from Ohio Valley. Me and Big Show got sent down there, and Big Show got sent down there to get in shape, and they sent me down there to get my head together because I wanted to fight everybody that said anything negative to me, and my wrestling couth was off. And I had a lot of respect for the boys. It wasn't a fact that I didn't have respect for the boys, but I came from a different place. And when you tried somebody, you better be able to whoop them where I'm from. Or don't say nothing to them. Let a sleeping dog lay. And, I always pick on Bradshaw because him and Ron Simmons used to entertain themselves by messing with me. And Ron would tell John, hey, he don't like the black jokes. Like, don't say nothing, don't. And he was like, no, but you got to do it, because watch him get hot. Watch him. And they used to manipulate me and now I'm old and it told me, but there was a time when I wanted to just murk him. I just wanted to get him. I walked up to him behind the bleachers one time and I said, hey man, today is the last day. I'm just like there's nobody around. This is going to happen again. One more joke and I'm putting your lights out. And he's like, man, what's wrong with you? Are you crazy? And I'm like, yes, I am. I was like, it's over. I was like, all your passes are gone. I was like, I don't care if they fire me, but you're going to be hurt. And he said, you fucking stupid. He's like, come over here. So he took me over to Ron. He said, Ron, ask him what he just told me. And I said, I'm finna kill him. And Ron said, why you going to kill him? And he's like, because I'm tired of all his jokes. He's like, man, come on, man. I'm sorry, man. Like, I put him up to it, man. I was trying, because it's so entertaining seeing you get mad. He's like, and we laughed and stuff, and I realized that I had to be indoctrined into the business. I had never really got accepted by the boys because I was so into my life outside of wrestling. I was somebody before wrestling. Right. And you need to treat me like I was somebody before wrestling, and that don't mean nothing when in the wrestling landscape. When you come into the business of sports entertainment, pro wrestling, however you want to phrase it, you have got to love that and put everything else aside. You play football. You know how you love football. But football didn't supersede wrestling once you got in it, right?
No.
So that was my problem, is I let everything else interfere with me actually being indoctrinated into wrestling.
So where was you heading in when you got in the business? Because, you get this call from Vince, and the next day you're flying up to Stanford, signed to a 10-year deal.
Well, it was about a 6-8 month period in between that first visit, but that ultimately is what happened.
But you're already, multiple times, you're the world's strongest man, 3-time Texas State. I mean, here's the thing. When you came in as the world's strongest man, 1996, right after the Olympics, they had red, white, and blue stuff for you, big marketing campaign. I was like, I get it. This dude's really, really strong. And I knew you were the world's strongest man, but then until you really look on paper what you've done, it's flabbergasting to see the list of accomplishments. My point is, with all of that accomplished, I can imagine you kind of walk in there with either a big head or the fact that, hey, I don't give a shit about, this is what
that was hard. That was hard for me.
Because it's a different step, and you're the monster among a bunch of big ass powerful men in your chosen sport, weightlifting and powerlifting, which is two separate deals that we'll get into. So where were you when you got in? Because after reading all this stuff, all the stuff that you did, I can understand why you'd be in a whole different mindset. You're training with the best in the world.
Yeah. I was still the world champion in powerlifting in 97, and I was the national champion in the same year in Olympic weightlifting. And I won 6 national titles leading up into the Olympics in Atlanta. And I got hurt, and that was the best shape I ever been in. And in the same calendar year, I did a 980-pound squat. I did a 903-pound deadlift, a 601 bench. I did a 501 clean and jerk, and a 402 snatch. No other human being walking this planet has ever done that. And I was told, you need to forget about all that and just absorb this and go on. That's like me saying, hey, you need to stop being black, you need to stop being Christian, and you need to become a vegan. Ain't no way. I can't do it. I can't do none of it. I'm never going to stop eating meat. I love meat. I'm a foodie. I'm a born and raised Christian. My grandmother and my mom would roll over in their graves if I switch religions. And as far as me never being black, I'm one of the blackest black people you ever go meet. It just can't happen, Steve.
But when someone says, hey, leave all that behind you, it's like, hey, man, these are worldwide. Never.
It's what made me me.
So if you lose that, you lose your identity.
Right.
And then at the end of the day, it's also your gimmick, or your the attraction, the world's strongest man. But then hey man, it's almost like you take a Bruce Lee approach here. Okay, I can understand maybe if they said, hey, forget about it, leave it over here.
Leave it.
Yeah.
But that's not what I got.
Right.
And there was no such thing as a developmental wrestling system. You went to the Indies, you went to a territory, and you learned how to work. And they gave you baby steps of what you put the ring up. You drove, you went and got food for the boys. You went, you refereed, you rung the bell. You did everything around the business until you got brought into the business. It was not in the cards for me. They hired Dr. Tom Pritchard to train me specifically wrestling diet 101, wrestling 101, and I went from being an anaerobic athlete to being an aerobic athlete, and people expected me to get it in a couple of weeks. I was a good athlete. You'd be hard pressed to find somebody that was able to do the things that I did strength-wise, like I just told you, that could still run a mile in under 9 minutes at 375 pounds, that could have a 33-inch vertical, that could dunk a basketball with 2 hands, that at 400 pounds, and all of the stuff that I did athletically. You tell that person that all of that, now nothing else exists but wrestling. And it was hard for me to do that. And also I had this problem, not a problem with authority, but I'm externally motivated. I'm a reward-driven athlete. I believe that if you win and you do good, you get rewarded. I didn't feel like wrestling was loving me back at the time. I was doing everything wrestling told me to do, but still the boys used to haze me. I would do everything there was to do, but then when it came time for TV, I didn't get put on TV. So people say, "You wrestle?" "Yeah." "I never seen you on TV before." And I was like, man, I need to get on TV. Like, why am I not on TV? So you can't just walk in Vince McMahon's office and say, "Hey man, I've been doing this for like 6 months. I ain't been on TV." I did, my dumb ass. I didn't know better. I didn't know nothing about wrestling other than the fact that I was a fan. And you take one of these fans out here and try to make them a Hall of Fame wrestler. That's not the way it works.
Who finally, with JBL and Ron Simmons ribbing you, I mean, like, who else was hazing you? Because, dude, you're one of the most powerful guys on the planet, and it's interesting that anybody would even consider hazing you. Because I remember when you came in, I was just coming out of the ringmaster gimmick. I was just now starting to kind of maybe get a little bit of established as Stone Cold. I knew they was going to push you heavy, once they got you up to speed. But I don't remember a lot of your beginning years because I was doing my own thing. Who was messing with you? And how long did it take for you to fit in with the wrestling crowd or the boys?
Well, it took me getting banished to Canada because I threatened to kill Shawn Michaels.
Of course,
like they hid my crutches and when I broke my ankle, and I just was like, okay, this is it. Like it's over. I don't want to do this.
Somebody pisses you off, they piss off the wrong person.
Oh man. And so I was like, man, you're 180 pounds, man. I'll kill you, man. It'd be unfair for me to whoop you. And he was like, "You threatening me?" I was like, "I don't think it's really a threat. I'm just like telling you like it is. Y'all need to leave me alone." And he told Vince, and Vince said, "Hey man, you can't threaten our top guys. What's wrong with you?" And I was like, "Look, man, I just ain't used to nobody trying me. Like, if they want to try me, they got to be able to accept the consequence. No, damn it, you can't just be beating people up. It's not going to fix it. They trying to bring you in, but you pushing them back." And I'm like, so he said, "You know what? I talked to Bret Hart, and he's training some guys up at his house, and I want you to go up to Canada." And I'm thinking, oh, shit, I'll go up to Canada for 2 or 3 weeks and come back, and, man, I'll be all right. I was up there for 9.5 months.
Holy shit.
Training every day, every morning in the ring, 4 hours a day. And then Owen introduced me to his dad, to Stu Hart, and I started going. I would leave Bret's house where the gym was, and then I'd drive over to Stu Hart house, the Hart House, and go wrestle down in the basement in the dungeon. And then he started teaching me wrist locks and hand holds. And Stu was a master of hand holds and wrist locks. And people don't realize, people like Judo Gene LaBelle and Stu Hart, like they were real shooters. And he was like, with your strength, you could do things to somebody that would be illegal. He's like, learn how to wrestle like that. I want you to put holes on people that look like you're going to pop them. And a light switch came on. And I started to work like that. And there were guys up there, Rodney Blackbeard, Andrew Martin, Tess, Glenn Coker, who played Canadian football, was an all-pro Canadian football player for like 13 years. It was a bunch of guys up there. Edge and Christian, it was the list goes on and on of guys that was up in Canada. And I felt like after about 9 months that I understood what it was to be a wrestler now. They should have did that to me first, right, before putting me in the locker room with seasoned wrestlers. And then I went to Louisville for another year. And I had Danny Davis, Jim Cornette, Rip Rogers, people that could really work and really understood wrestling. You know, there's nobody that's crazier in this world than Jim Cornette. But there's nobody in this world that I feel like I've met that understood the psychology of wrestling or could teach the psychology of wrestling better than Jim Cornette. He's special, but crazy as hell.
Oh, yeah.
Super special.
Jim Cornette.
I love him to death because if it wasn't for him, there wouldn't be no me in wrestling. Like, that's how serious it was. He knew that I was a reader because he would see me and I'd be reading a book. And he'd be like, you know, you need to put that football magazine down. You need to grab one of these wrestling books. Here you go. He handed me a stack of books.
Really?
And
like what?
The Hooker was the best book that I ever read in wrestling for wrestling. And Danny Hodge, learning about Danny Hodge and all of these guys that he said, these guys, if they were your size, they would be put in jail. He was like, you need to be Danny Hodge. And I'm like, wow. So then when I started reading about Danny Hodge, I realized, man, this dude was strong. Like, the stuff that they said that he could do, I was like, at 212, 214 pounds? No way. And I was interested. I was hooked. So he gave me a vehicle that strength had its place in wrestling. And that was it. I was done. I was down in Louisville for a year. I came back and, you know, I had a match at the Pillman show. And I remember seeing you at that Pillman show. And the first one after he passed, and I had a match with Hugh Morris, and we killed it, and we were leapfrogging and arm dragging and stuff. And after the match, we were sitting on the floor, and Ricky Steamboat walked up and he said, "Hey man, what's your name?" And I was like, "Mark Henry." And he was like, you know what? It's good to see that psychology still exists in our business. That was the first time that anybody had brought me in that said, you're a part of us. You're one of us. He said, our business. He didn't say my business.
Right.
And I felt like as accomplished as I've ever felt in powerlifting, weightlifting, strongman, anything else. Like Ricky Steamboat, in one comment, validated the fact that I belonged in the business. And nothing nobody else could say would tell me that anything different.
It's interesting, these different moments that happen in the different places you went. I never knew you spent 9-10 months up there with the Hearts.
Yeah. And I remember Natty and TJ and all of them, they were like 5 years old. They were babies. I used to babysit them when the parents needed to go out and have date night. Like, you know, I'd take the kids, I cook for them, all of Brett's kids. You know, we get done eating, I cook for them. We made pasta together and spaghetti and stuff, and because they love spaghetti. And Austin broke a plate on the floor, bang, because he didn't want to wash dishes. I said, okay, after you clean that up, we're gonna do some push-ups. I used to torture the hell out of them. I used to make them do push-ups and squats. They did what we did in training.
I know that you give Dwayne Johnson a lot of credit for helping you out a lot when they put you in the Nation of Domination. How and what did he do to help you?
That was master class. I had learned how to wrestle, and I had learned psychology, but I hadn't learned how to apply it in the ring. And that's something altogether different. There's never been a wrestler that was more studied than Dwayne. He was over-prepared. We would talk in the car, and he would have VHS tapes of matches of the people that he was going to wrestle against. And we used to carry a video game, Xbox, PlayStation or something. Sega, CD, whatever games, we played them games. And he would carry a VCR on the road with him. And he would watch tapes at night when he got to his room. And he always was writing promos. And he would practice the promos on you in the car. You know, man, I just want to ask you a question. What? Well, I mean, how do you feel about, you know, driving down to King of Prussia, New York? Well, it doesn't matter what. And I'm like, man, will you shut up? He's like, that's annoying, ain't it? Like, he would do that kind of stuff. He would practice everything. And he told me that I play too much. He said, you need to focus, man. Like, you can be good. He was like, if you concentrate on wrestling like you do video games and watching college football, you're gonna be great. And he was right. And I had to be more serious. When he came here, he didn't have 2 nickels to rub together. And I had an apartment in Stanford, and I told him, I was like, man, I got extra room in my apartment. You can just move in with me. And he was like, man, I don't have no money, to pay you, But I was like, look, you're going to get some money. Don't worry about it. When you get it, pay me back. So he moved in with me. I bought him a bedroom set. And about 6 months later, he got his first check. He paid me back. And we lived together for about 7 months before we both went to Memphis together. The Memphis terrier, Jerry Lawler, said, hey, man, I'll take them young guys so they can learn how to work on the road. And so we went down to Memphis, man, and started working and driving 5 hours and 4 hours. Like, man, what the hell? I thought we were going to fly. He was like, nah, spoiled dude, it's over. You're on the road now. He's like, this is what it really is. He was like, I used to do this with my dad. And that he was destined for greatness because he had already knew everything.
Yeah.
He accepted it a long time ago. I didn't know. He was trying to explain it to me.
Right.
But I was in the world.
Yeah, but also sometimes when someone tries to explain something to you and you're just not ready to absorb it.
I wasn't ready.
You're just not at a level to comprehend it yet. It takes some seasoning, and then finally you go, oh, this is what they were talking about.
That's what you
Hello,
meant.
McFly, and you get it.
Yeah.
A couple of questions here. How were you and Dwayne as far as roommates? Was it like, a neat freak and someone who's not a neat freak, or y'all get along like gangbusters? How was that?
Man, we got along real good because he put his headphones on when he went to sleep, and he would put those headphones on, he'd go to sleep, knocking on my door because I didn't set an alarm. I used to just get up when I got up. And he started, hey, man, come on, let's go work out now so we can go train, and then after training, we don't have to go work out. We have like the whole day. And I was like, oh, I hated getting up. So now I'm getting up at 6, 7 o'clock with him going to the gym, and it was the best shape I had ever been in. Like, he was like, hey, man, they're gonna bring you into the nation. Like, I've been talking to Vince about you being like the muscle for me. And I was like, man, I don't want to be the muscle for you. That's how stupid I was.
Jesus Christ.
I'm telling you, I was stupid, man.
Okay.
I don't want to be the muscle for you. I want to be my own guy. I want to do this. And then he's like, look, man,
trying to give you
going to be on TV.
Yeah.
I'm trying to help you out. And
my God.
Just stupid. And we got to the building, and Ron said, look, all you got to do is keep your mouth shut and do what I ask you to do, and you're going to be all right. And there's never been truer words. Now, a lot of people think that Dwayne was the one that came up with the know your role and shut your mouth. That was Ron Simmons. Ron Simmons was the one that was like, listen, you need to know your role. And, if you can shut your mouth, and Dwayne took that and said, boom. And it was one of the things that helped him. So it's like all of us were benefiting from working with Ron. And if you saw me during that time of the nation, I was a carbon copy of Ron Simmons. I did everything he did in the ring. I wrestled exactly like Ron Simmons. And then Ron said, look, you can't do exactly what I do. Stop stealing my stuff. He was like, you need to come up with your own identity. And so it was like masterclass. Godfather and Billy Gunn used to go to the ring with me, and they helped me. They showed me like how to come up with my own thing. And man, then it's just like everything else was history then.
I got to ask you a question about Ron Simmons, because I met Ron a long time ago back in World Championship Wrestling. We was working in Atlanta, and we always got along like gangbusters. He's a former football player, and, he's a badass. My question to you is, Ron always had that tone, that voice. Ron could get your attention by reading the alphabet. And one of the promos I was watching you guys did, he basically goes, "Hey, shut your mouth." He told you to shut up. It was during a promo.
Mm-hmm.
But when he laid that tone on you, and you coming out of an alpha sport from all the weightlifting, powerlifting days, and all of a sudden you're dealing with a man like Ron Simmons, you know he was a bad dude.
You see the operative word you use? A man.
Oh, yeah.
In the dictionary under man is a picture of Ron Simmons with his hand on his chin like the thinker. And Ron Simmons is a grown man. There's a lot of men on this planet, but it ain't many grown men. Ron Simmons, I watched this dude go in the gym with a pair of blue jeans and cowboy boots, put 315 on the bar, no warm-up, do 20 reps, rack it, comb his hair for about 2 minutes, put his comb in his boot, take it off, do another set of 20. John, I'm going to the car. That was his workout. He was country strong, and it wasn't just training strong. It was from his soul.
Yeah.
And I felt like I size people up. I know you're an athlete. You size people up. You're like, look, if shit go wrong and I got to hit this dude, let me find that weakness. I'm sizing him up. I would look at Ron sometimes, and Ron was like your grandfather. He was like, what you looking at me like that for? He knew that you were sizing him up, and he was letting you know right away, don't think that it's okay for you to size me up. And I go, yes, sir. He's the only person I think I've ever been scared of in my life. Like, that's a grown man.
It was early 90s. We was over in Japan. A bunch of us American guys were over there. This is my first time over there. We was over there for about a 3-week period, and I tore my tricep off my right arm on the third night. So back in the day, man, if you tore your tricep off your arm, you stayed and you worked. That's just the way it was.
It wasn't going to get no worse?
No, but it wasn't going to get no better. It's just the way it was. So to help me out, they put us in a lot of tags and 6-mans. So one of the nights, and, you know, Ron always had that voice. And it was a 6-man, and me and Arn were on the apron. Ron was in there. We were working against the Japanese guys. And you'd always hear, hey, man, some of those guys are strong style you or be stiff with you. You know, sending a message, or that's how they worked. Man, those guys, it was like Shakespearean theater. Nobody would, you know, it was like light as a feather. And especially when Ron got out there, Arn used to always call me Hog. He goes, hit me with his elbow. You know, we're in the Japanese crowd. He goes, man, I feel sorry for those guys over there. And Ron was just whipping those guys around like it was like they weighed 150 pounds and just doing whatever he wanted. But it was like, if Ron started taking care of business, Ron was going to take care of business. Bottom line, don't mess with him. Don't fuck with him.
No, I the only time that I ever seen it in live in 3D was dumbass Ahmed Johnson. All people in the world to pick a beef with. He kicked Ron and lacerated Ron's liver.
Ooh.
And Ron was out for about 9 months. And I'm thinking the whole time, when Ron come back, I feel sorry for this dude because he gave him his body. And he kicked him as hard as I ever seen a human being kicked. Teddy Long was driving the car with me, and he said, hey, man, you know Ron Simmons come back next week. I said, oh, man, that's cool. He was like, nah, listen, this is between me and you. I live in Atlanta. I talk to Ron all the time. Ron is pissed. And he said that when he come back, he going to hurt this dude. And I'm like, oh, snap. Like, I couldn't. I'm like, he's like, don't say nothing, you know. I'm just letting you know, like, don't be around him because he got heat. And I was like, all right, I ain't messing with him anyway. So they get back, and I remember the first time I saw Ron is always like, hey, Henry. He walked right by me like I wasn't there. Posted up in the locker room. And I can't remember who it was. Somebody went and sat next to him. Ron grabbed all his stuff kind of in a huff and moved it over into an area where he was by himself. And it was so unlike Ron. He was so angry being back at the arena knowing that Ahmed was coming. And he was mentally preparing himself for what was about to happen. And I remember looking at the card, and Ron been gone for 9 months or more. And it was Ron Simmons, Ahmed Johnson, And I went, holy cow, it was a sellout. I remember being a sellout.
Refer to what you're talking about, a sellout. I'm sure
Okay,
everybody knows.
so for those that don't know what a sellout, this is not when, you sell all the tickets in the arena. I'm talking about when all the boys are standing at the curtain and they're peeking through because they want to watch what's going to happen with their real eyes rather than watching a monitor or being in the gorilla position. All the boys are watching. And I remember standing next to D-Lo, and D-Lo hated Ahmed Johnson. They had a fight earlier that year, and which D-Lo stretched his ass. He had, Triple H had Hunter Hearst Helmsley at the time, had a run-in with him, and he threatened to beat up Hunter, and he was going to moke him. And he was like, no, but D-Lo said, nobody's moking nobody. And that's when they got in a fight. But D-Lo was standing next to him. He said, hey, this ain't going to take long. And I went, like, it was a build-up. And I'm telling you, it was not a lockup. It was a mauling. Ron ran through him. His back hit the ground. Ron stomped on his stomach, and then when he rolled over to try to get up, Ron kicked him in the ribs, broke 3 of his ribs, and I mean, it was like watching a tiger or a lion or something attack some helpless animal in the wild. And Ron pinned him. And at this time, and I'm going to use your analogy, Ahmed Johnson was over as hell during that time. The only person getting a reaction like yours was his. He was that over. 6 months later, done. He got killed off in one night. It was that night that Ron came back and whooped his ass. His run was over. And he never was the same. He had to leave. He couldn't be there. He couldn't be there no more.
I didn't know that.
Oh, my God. Ron ran him out the business. And his life of crime started because he wasn't a good enough wrestler to go to WCW and be a player. People carried him his whole career. As you can tell, I don't like him. I never liked him. He was a bad example for a black man. People struggle to get in this business and to try to make a success and try to be equal and to be better than equal, and he was ruining it. And Ernie Ladd told me when I came in this business, he said, Henry, don't mess it up for everybody to look like you afterwards. And I felt like Ahmed he did not get that memo. Nobody told him. And I think that he was such a liar and people didn't have enough faith in him to do the right thing that they just wouldn't help him anyway. And so, he ended up doing his own thing. But he tried to pill me one night. I ate with him and Fatu. And I turned my drink up, and then it's 2 somas in my water. I don't drink alcohol. Ain't no telling 2 somas could have killed me for all I knew. It might not have, but I'm like, look, guys, somebody got to answer for this. What happened? Who put these in my drink? Fatu said, look, man, I ain't saying nothing about nobody else, but I ain't do it. And it wasn't but 2 of them sitting there. And I love Junior for it. Yeah. And we sat there. I said, look, go on finish your meal because I'm going outside and, we're going to handle this when you come outside. And 30 minutes go by, 40 minutes go by. I just pulled him and Fatu's bags out the car, threw them on the curb, and I went on to Miami. We were in West Palm. I'll never forget it. I was so angry. That was about as angry as I ever been in the business. And I never liked Ahmed since. And he never apologized or nothing. Just like this is a guy that's based my whole life on being drug-free. And you're going to try to pill me. You're going to put, you go to prison for that now.
Yeah.
You do that, you go to prison.
Did you never drink?
I never drank. I drank in college. My freshman year in college, when I first left and went to Pikes Peak Community College in Colorado Springs at the Olympic Training Center, I got so sick that night. I was like, Lord God, if you deliver me from this pain and this spinning and vomiting, I'll never do it again. Never drink again.
Are you serious?
I don't drink. I never drank after that.
No pills on the road.
Nothing. I never did. I don't smoke. I smoke cigars with the boys every now and then, but that's more social. It's not like I smoke cigars every week or every month. Every 2 or 3 months, I might smoke a cigar. That's about it.
There's a lot of temptations on the road. How did you stay steadfast and
strip clubs?
Everybody got a fight.
Everybody.
Hallelujah. Okay.
Ted DiBiase used to say that everybody had a price. You just coined a new T-shirt. Everybody's got a vice. Man, I was a fool, man. I used to hit them strip joints, man, them shake clubs. I hang out with the boys. If you spent $5, I spent $5. We had a ball. And then you got to grow up. And, I just grew up and became a family guy.
Man, that's awesome. You got to a guy that you didn't like, and that guy has said things about me that are untrue. I'm not a fan either. But I wanted to...
Oh, I heard him call you a racist?
Yep.
Out of all the people on earth that's of Caucasian persuasion, I would attest that that you are not a racist.
Thank you for attesting to that.
I heard what he said.
I've never been able to address that because I've never had
or needed
whatever.
to.
Yeah.
You didn't have to validate his stupidity.
No. That's a completely fabricated story and complete horseshit, and I've maintained my silence, and this is the first time I've ever addressed it or talked about it.
I'm glad we can, because the source that it came from was not valid enough for anybody to believe it anyway.
Alexa isn't the only one with breaking news. Make sure to hang around at the end of this podcast for the latest breaking headlines on the AP News Minute.
It was a crime no one expected, and one many can't forget. 22 Hours, An American Nightmare. A new podcast from WTOP News and PodcastOne details the heinous murders of a D.C. power couple, their 10-year-old son, and housekeeper inside their own home. The chilling messages from the victims being held hostage.
Hey, Nellie, it's Saba.
The complicated trail of evidence and shocking moments from the trial.
She thinks she knows how Darren Wint got inside the house.
His defense team drops a bombshell.
Will this investigation lead to the release of confidential audio recordings from the case?
So it's under general counsel review. I'm committing to making a transparent court.
22 Hours, An American Nightmare. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts today.
This is the Steve Austin Show.
Going back to your weightlifting accomplishments, and your mother bought you your first weight set when you were about 10 years old. And you've always, your side of the family, or y'all's family had big men in it.
Oh, yeah.
But you had an uncle, Uncle Chud.
Chud Adams.
Who was 6'7", about 500 pounds. I wanted to...
About 450. 450. He was a big dude. It would be easy for me to get up to 400 pounds again if I ate like that. In the country, he worked in the woods, and my grandmother's favorite cousin, and never really had a pair of shoes. He used to wear moccasins, or what they call brogans. It was like a sole with a shoe that kind of wrapped around your foot. Just a unbelievable, like my family, when they used to talk about him, it was like Bigfoot. It was like they was telling you the stories about some monster that existed a long time ago. And they spoke with reverence when they talked about him. My grandmother used to say, Mark remind me so much of Chud, he's just smaller. I'm 6'4", and 400 pounds, and she referred to me as smaller.
Was he able to get in any kind of sports or anything like that?
No, this was
known as the strongest man in the Piney Woods.
Yeah, this was he used to like pull logs and he was a logger.
Right.
And this was during it was the 30s. So, it was no opportunity for him to do anything other than just work. He wasn't educated. He went to school, nothing like that. It was long before integration. It was, you're in the early 30s, just 30 years before that, it's slavery.
Yeah.
My grandmother, she used to talk about him, like with that reverence, but no, it was no opportunity for him to play any sports or anything. That didn't exist for black people.
So when you started, your mother bought you that weight set at 10. When had you started training prior? Because I know that they formed a powerlifting team around you at Silsbee High School, but what what drove her to buy you that weight set? And when did you figure out that you would put on earth? I mean, I know like in 5th grade, you was like, what, 225?
Yeah, I was pretty big, but I remember seeing the Olympics for the first time in 76. And there was a guy by the name Vasily Alexiev.
Oh, yeah, man.
And Alexiev was...
Big drum on him,
man,
strong as a house.
When he came on TV, it was like he was Muhammad Ali-like. You know, he didn't speak English, but they threw roses at him. Like, he was revered. And I told you, I'm externally motivated. Anything that looked like, wow, they respect that guy, like, that's what I wanted to do. And I figured, you know what, I feel strong. I'm going to be like him. And I told my mom I wanted weights. And that was all spawned off. You know, I'm like 6 or 7 years old. She like, you can't lift no weights, you know. And I begged her from that time all the way until I was 11 when she bought those weights. And she was like, well, these your brother's weights. And, you know, y'all can lift them together. Like, you know, so my mom was always inclusive. She like, look, y'all doing this together. But it was me that was begging for them. And that's all we did. Like, you know, some kids go out and ride bikes. You know, me and my brother, we went and lift weights. And all the kids in the neighborhood used to come to our front yard. We be out there lifting weights, man.
What kind of weight set did you get? Because I remember back
DP for life. Yep. They was concrete.
Concrete and the plastic gimmick,
and
right?
Yep, with the little plastic coat.
Bar.
Yep, little bitty tiny bar. We bent that bar, and we ended up using a pipe. Like a real thick metal pipe, kind of like just a little bit bigger than rebar. And it's kind of what they call cold roll. Mm-hmm. And so we lifted with that. And that thing itself was probably 30, 40 pounds, just a piece of metal. You know, I had never done, the only way that you could do a squat is if you did a good morning, because it was a bench press that the rack was on, and it only went up to a certain height. So we would do a good morning, and then we'd do squats. We copy everything we saw on TV.
Yep.
During that time, they had the world's strongest man, and this guy, Bill Kazmaier. You know, they used to throw rocks and, you know, lift logs and different stuff, and that's what I did. Anything that looked remotely challenging, I tried to replicate it in my backyard. There was a show that used to come on at noon called Body Shaping with Corey Everson. And I met
all the same stuff.
I met Corey Everson. She got inducted into the International Sports Hall of Fame like 4 years ago. And I was there. And I told her, I said, you know, I want you to know this because a lot of people don't. The reason that I am who I am today is because I watched Body Shape, and I copied everything y'all did, and I used to do it in my backyard and in my front yard. And she just laughed and cried and laughed and cried and told me that was one of the sweetest things that she had ever heard. And I was very congratulatory for her because she was one of the pioneers for women lifting. And they used to call people muscle bound and used to say that women look like men and all that stuff when lifting weights. And she had to endure all of that. And I idolized her. And she, you know, I learned a lot of my technique from watching Body Shape.
How did you strike upon a relationship with Terry Todd? Because he was a kinesiology professor at University of Texas. Mm-hmm. I followed his weightlifting career probably as long as you did. Then he becomes, I guess, a mentor for you.
Yeah, like my dad. You
lost your father at a young age. And why were you able, or how, and I guess you're going to say it's athletic ability, because most highly successful powerlifters don't make the transition to the Olympic lifts.
How I met Terry actually came to Silsbee to see me lift because he had heard that this 15-year-old kid had squatted 700 pounds and deadlifted 700 pounds. He's like, there's no way that's humanly possible without drugs. He's like, and that's bullshit. Like, somebody need to go down there and get them people in line. And he came to Silsbee with the intent on taking people to task over harming some kid. He didn't know me.
That's unbelievable.
He had no idea who I was. And he came down, and it was just God's work that his wife, Terry, and his wife, Jan, sat next to my coach's wife in the audience. They sat right next to him. And he was like, I can't wait for this to see this kid lift. And she was like, "Oh, Mark, that's him right down there." They was, "Oh, you know him?" He's like, "Yeah, that's my husband is his coach." And he was like, "So
That's great.
Is he how much drugs is he taking?" Kind of poking the bear. "Oh no, Mark is not taking any drugs." It's like his mom is sitting right over there. Like, you can go talk to her. That's his mom, Barbara Jean, right there, sitting on the front. And Jan went and talked to my mom, and Terry stayed there and talked to her. They was getting cross information. And then after the competition, my mom told me to come here, and she said, "Hey, this is the strongest woman in the world," because Jan had talked to my mom for hours. And they came down here to see you lift. They got to see you lift, and I was like, "Oh, that's cool." Jan straight out asked me, she was like, "Mark, you never took any drugs before, have you?" And I was like, "Drugs? I had no idea. I didn't even know people took drugs, like, for lifting. Like, I mean, I know you take when you go to the hospital to get sick or something like that, some aspirin or something." And that was the extent of medicine for enhancement. I had no clue. They was like, "So you never did any drugs?" And I was like, "No." And then she talked to the coaches, and they was like, got all of us together, and we went to eat a little place in Silsbee, Blue Bonded Inn. There was no big restaurants. There's only 3,000 people there. Everybody know everybody. And we sat and talked, and Terry, that was the first time that I'd ever heard somebody talk about me with reverence. And Terry said that, "Miss Barbara Jean, I just want to let you know I've been in and around the world of physical culture since the 60s, since the 50s. There's never been another human born like your son. Like, Mark is different. Like, if he never took any drugs, what he's doing is impossible." And
that's a heavy statement.
It's heavy, man. It's heavy for a kid to hear somebody talk about them. And Terry said that, so you're like everything age appropriate, like, he's 15. Yes. No drugs. Yes. And he's been training under the supervision of, the junior high coaches, and that's his coach right there. And, like, that was it. So when I came into my sophomore year, and we got a team, like, I was it. There was nobody else on the team. And they started raising money in the town. They went to the city of Silsbee and said, "Hey, we need to buy some weights for the high school." So all of in the 8th grade and 9th grade, I was lifting more than my brother, who was the strongest kid at the school. And he had worked out with me every day from the beginning. And he used to tell people, "Hey, my little brother's stronger than me." And
which is something you never want to do.
You never want to hear that, like, my little brother's stronger than me. So we trained together, and even when my brother went and played football at A&M, his nickname was Shorty. But it was short for Shorty Strong because he had a 650 squat, 650 deadlift, and 400-pound bench. Like, I come from strong people.
Yeah.
And some of it is genetic, but it's also the fact that that's just how we work. It was nothing else to do in my town. It was either go to the park and play basketball, softball or something, or lift weights. And everything was structured around getting ready to play football. I was a better than average football player. But once I found out that I was special in the lifting and throwing the discus and shot put, football was second thought to me. It was like, man, I won the junior worlds. I was the strongest kid in the world. Little boy from Silsbee. By then, Sports Illustrated got a hold of it. They had this article called Teenage Mastodon in Sports Illustrated, and they start chronicling all the numbers that I put up and my improvement every year up until my senior year in high school. And once I got to plus 800 pounds in the squat, then I was on the world landscape. Like, people like Magic Johnson were commenting, knew who I was and stuff like that. So I had worldwide notoriety. and I'm just a little country boy from Silsbee. It was my powerlifting career is the one that launched me into the world of sports.
I was watching a thing on YouTube. Explain to what's the wheel, the Apollo wheel.
The Apollon's wheels. Adolf Apollon was a lift in the 1800s, and he lifted a train axle. And a train axle, trains were not what they are today. When we say a train, it's like a car in the 1900s, 1800s, was not what the car is today. A car weighed 5,000, 6,000 pounds. A car weighed about 500 pounds back then. This little trolley train axle was 386 pounds. The handle on it was 3.5 inches in diameter, and it was fixed. It didn't rotate like a Olympic bar or weightlifting bar you would go see in the gym. And he apparently lifted this, which to Terry Todd was thought it was all bullshit. He just said he lifted that. There's no way he lifted that. But anyway it go, it was a lift. People used to try it all the time. And then there was an American lifter named Norbert Szymanski and John Davis, both Olympians and world champions. They both lifted it. And now it becomes the standard of strongman feats. 2002, I came out of retirement, and I went and competed in the Arnold Classic World's Strongest Man.
And this is what I'm getting at.
And I lifted it 3 times. And
Dude, you lifted it. It was so explosive when you cleaned it or snatched it. It was unbelievable. It was frightening how fast that thing came off the ground to shoot. Because you got to understand, when we're talking about this bar, I got pretty big hands. And you're
bigger than a water bottle.
Yeah, so you can't wrap your hands all the way around it. And it's 386, give or take, whatever. Let's call it 400. But just the way that thing come off the ground, and the dude that just come off before you had struggled with it.
Everybody did.
Everybody did. And then all of a sudden, because this is when you was making your comeback, because everybody's saying, hey, you're calling yourself the world's strongest man, but you ain't done nothing else.
You ain't do nothing. How
so I'll let you tell the story, but I just want to say, dude, how it exploded. You could see the guys are trying to no-sell it behind you, but if you watch that film back, these guys are thinking, holy shit, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Tell us about it.
So during that time, I was failing in wrestling. I had just got back from Canada. I had just got back from Louisville. I had started to wrestle and had got into the nation and started to get my footing, and things was looking good. And I was happy with my life, and then all of a sudden the rug get pulled out from under me because, they was like, we got the world's strongest man, and this. And there was a couple of guys who I'm not going to mention their names because I wouldn't give them life if they was on life support, started saying I shouldn't be calling myself the world's strongest man because that's how they make their living. And I wasn't the world's strongest man because I didn't compete against the world's strongest men. And there was some truth to that. But I was giving more attention to lifting, being in the world landscape of pro wrestling, than anybody that was in the sport.
Yeah.
And rather than bash me, it would have came across better if they was like, hey man, you should come to a competition and show people who you are in both worlds. That didn't happen.
They trash talked you.
They trash talked me. So now I'm angry.
Well, they messed up.
And I told Terry Todd, I said, hey man, I want to come out of retirement. And he was like, I don't know if Vince gonna like that too much. They paying you to wrestle. You should just do that. Unbeknownst to Terry, I go to Vince. I say, hey man, I can't sleep at night knowing that people say that I shouldn't call myself the world's strongest man. And Vince
That's
said,
how much of a shoot it was for you.
That's how much it was for me. It was real to me. Yeah. It was me. It was my identity.
Yes.
I'm not Superman no more. Come on. I couldn't sleep. I literally could not go to bed. And I told Vince, I was like, I got to go and beat these dudes. And he was like, can you beat them? And I almost cussed at him. I was like, you doubting me too? Like, it was like, I'm crazy, Steve.
Yeah, I get you.
I can't help it.
You got to be here to feel the intensity when he looks at you.
I said, I'll beat him. And he said, you know what? If you want to do it, go ahead and do it. He said, but I'm going to tell you now, if you get beat, he's like, there's no place for the world's second strongest man. He said, like, you win and because your career depends on it. And I don't know if a lot of athletes would have even done that if they was making the money that I was making a year. And to say, you know what, I'm going to go take a chance on this. It wasn't a chance to me. I wasn't taking a chance.
Really?
It was me going and proving who I was. It was me taking the glasses off, taking the cape off, and saying, hey, I'm not Clark Kent. I'm Mark Henry. And those guys found out exactly who I was. And I retired from, strongman the next day. I went for one competition to prove and let everybody know who I was, and I went back to wrestling, and it was the best thing because it was like a shot in the arm. It was like Mark Henry is truly the strongest human being on earth, and that is what took me to the next level in wrestling.
I got two questions before we go there because I want to go there. When you proved that you were the world's strongest man, then what did those guys say to you?
Then they was like, Mark, you are the man. Like, I never seen nothing like you. The strongman world is a brotherhood, just like wrestling. We might disagree with each other and we might have beef with each other. But if it's us against them, they finna get their ass kicked. And that's the same way it is in strongman. I've loved strongman, but I don't think that the world of strongman loved me back. And I had to get away from it. I don't think people got drug tested the way they should get drug tested. And I was the guy that was always like, hey, you drug test me any day of the week.
Yeah.
Twice on Sunday.
Yeah.
I don't care. And I got took up on it. In 96, during the Olympics, I said that. And I got drug tested 23 times in one calendar year. In 12 months, I had 23 drug tests. There ain't another human being that ever walked the planet, athlete, that got drug tested as much as I did.
And I believe you through all your tests that you passed for a shoot. I know you're 100% drug-free when a lot of people say they are, but they're not, or they do a cycle, they get off so they can test clean.
Mm-hmm.
I flat out 100% believe you. End of story. Moving on, you keep bringing up your talks with Vince. And when he gave you the first call and you go down to Stanford, y'all come up with a 10-year deal, and then you're doing some things wrong. You go over to Canada. You go down to Ohio Valley, what's it called?
Louisville, Ohio Valley Wrestling.
Yeah. And, hey, man, you got to get your attitude right. And then you want to go prove yourself to be the strongest man again. You're always in there talking to Vince. Now, 20 years later, a little bit more than that, but you know the man over 20 years. Tell me about your relationship with that guy, how it's developed, and what he's meant to you. Because I watched that special, one of the things I was watching that WWE Network did on you, and he's there with you when you're doing the sexual chocolate stuff, and he's getting you to come into your own. And we'll get there when we come back from, the Hall of Pain and more stuff like that. But what is your relationship with that man? Because it's a very complex thing, and you once went in to retire. He got 5 more years out of you, but there's got to be a lot of trust and respect there. You tell me, dude.
There's a lot of trust and a lot of respect with Vince because Vince always was a straight shooter with me. He never. I hear these stories about him double talking people. And he never did that to me. And there was a time, to just put in perspective, Vince had we always talked about his fashion sense. And I think Vince realized that I was kind of off a long time ago, but he had these shoes and he was like, I know you like these. These are stylish. And I was like, they look like clown shoes. And he was like, what do you mean they look like clown shoes? He was like, you can't talk to me like that. You're not afraid of me? And I said, you can't whoop me. What I'm going to be afraid of you for? And he just started laughing. He was like, that's why I like you. He respected me as a man. And he knew I wasn't no punk, that I wasn't going to be wishy-washy. I was going to hide how I felt or nothing like that. If I had a disagreement with him, when I came in his office, he, what's wrong? Because he could see it. I'm pretty self-explanatory for people that are listening. Like, I'm not a liar. I can't hide behind something. If I feel a certain way and you're around me, you automatically feel it too. That's just the way God made me. And he knew when I walked in his office, and there's a level of love and respect that he and I have for each other. And he has told me he loves me. I've told him I love him back. And more than anything, I respect what I've learned from him. And a lot of people in power hide knowledge. Knowledge is the key to unlocking anything that remotely is possible for any human, regardless of what color, creed, religion, sexual orientation. Knowledge and teaching is the key. He didn't have to teach me the understanding of pro wrestling. He did, and I provide for my family based off what I've learned from this human being. And I had people offer me more money during that time of the wars, and I didn't take it. I was loyal because he was the one that got me into wrestling, and that was where I was going to stay. And he knew that because I told him. It's not like giving no leverage. Hey, man, they offered me some more money. I didn't tell him because I wanted them to up my pay. I told him because I'm not going. Good talk. Let's be out. And that was it. So he knows who I am, as opposed to what anybody else would say. And we fought. We've argued. And he's had to tell me, hey, that's not smart. And I was like, well, you didn't have to tell me I wasn't smart. You could have told me. And he's like, but that wouldn't be me being honest. You've had conversations with Vince. You know what it's like.
Yeah.
He's telling you the truth from his perspective. It might not be gentle and coddling, but he's telling you his truth. And if you feel like he's wrong, then prove it to him. Tell him where he's wrong. He's not going to fire you or bitch and moan at you because you proved him wrong. He wants you to. If he's wrong, tell him, hey, man, you wrong. This is where you're wrong. And then he'll go, oh, okay, well, let's fix that. It's that simple, but people are afraid of him. And I'm going to tell you right now, he will resent you. He'll hear this. I know he's going to hear this. He will resent you if he can't trust you to be a man of your word and your character.
Agreed.
And I'm not going to say everything because I know he's real private, but I'm just saying there's a certain level of respect that I have for somebody that's going to give me the whole truth and nothing but the truth. When I was wrong, he told me I was wrong. My wife is the only other person on this planet that's able to look me in my face and say, Mark, you're wrong. This is what I said. Get out of your own head, and how do you come up with a solution? Them the only two people that's able to tell me, and me drop everything and listen to what they saying.
So a great relationship exists. I was just in there talking with your buddies on their show, and I told them, I kind of got along the same, you have a very deep relationship with the guy, and you've known him forever. I told those guys over there, I said, man, just as far as learning, I learned more from working for Vince McMahon than I did in 5 years of college. You know, just about anything and everything.
Business, especially.
And life. And at times, when you look at it, you know, he's been either the father figure, brother, whatever. Mentor, just shrink, psychologist, psychiatrist for how many guys?
When I was mad at my wife, Vince was the one that was like, hey, you married, you got married, you do what she said. ultimately, she's right. Even when she's wrong, she's right. He said that to me. You look at stuff from how it benefits you. Think about how it benefits everybody else. It's like, man, stop shooting. Stop telling me the truth. I don't want the truth. You're supposed to be on my side. I'm not on nobody's side. I'm on the side of truth.
Let's talk about, and I know you don't have all day, and I appreciate the time you've given me, but let's talk about maybe it was in that 2002 period when you came back. You were a house of fire. I guess my question to you is, maybe it was all fun to you. Did you like working heel or baby more? One of the things, my takeaway is going back to your high school powerlifting days when they had the cameras rolling. Man, you were hamming it up and, high energy. And that goes hand in hand with weightlifting, but it also goes hand in hand with our business and passion and emotions. And I say emotions sell tickets. You've always been, that kind of guy. But when you finally found your way, okay, the simple question, heel or baby?
Heel. Because I didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't know that as nice as I was, that I was controlled by my feelings. You can make me angry, but you are not allowed to hurt my feelings. If you hurt my feelings and you get on the bad side of me, I already have a hole dug with bags of lime around it for the person to hurt my feelings. I'm not shitting you one bit. You hurt my family, you hurt my soul, my feelings. Like if you have to go, you have to go at that point, honestly. I've never screwed nobody over. Ain't nobody can say, Mark Henry, man, he screwed me out of my money, he lied to me. Nobody. On a couple occasions, I lied to my wife. She knew I was lying when I said it because I'm not a good liar. And when you have to apologize because you did something stupid or wrong, it's hurtful to your feelings because you got caught more than because you did something wrong. And that's the stuff that has made me the man that I am, is I've evolved from worrying about how I see stuff as a part to how everything that I do affects everybody else. I'm an everybody else dude now. But my feelings is what is not allowed to be hurt. I don't get angry very much because I can't. Because, it's not a good place for me. Anger is not a good place for me.
But what about that period when you were in the WWE? Was it coming back from a strongman stuff, or was it a couple of years later? But you said there was hatred there. I think it was you didn't feel like you were appreciated by the WWE audience. And you just said that you weren't appreciated by the strongman community. You had to go back, and you was angry about that and prove them wrong. And so was it the underappreciation that brought out the hatred?
It was. See,
it was like, hey, man, what I got to do to get some appreciation here? I'm
exactly
my ass off every
I'm killing myself for y'all. I'm killing myself for y'all, and you boo me. And the same thing happened with Dwayne. Rocky Sucks was real. They hated Rocky Maivia. They thought he was soft. They thought he didn't work tight enough. They thought that it was hokey. And Dwayne hated it. And you could see it in his face, in his demeanor. He hated his hair. He hated everything about it. He loved his culture, and he felt like it was pissing on his culture for him to dress like that and not really be that. Hated it. I felt the same identical way with how the fans relate. I was out there killing myself. I'm absorbing other people's energy. I was the guy that caught everybody. 200. I pressed Vader when he was 400 pounds. It hurt my shoulders, but I did it. There was things that I did that hurt so bad that for somebody to boo, I was like, the same guy that had the conversation a few weeks ago on Busted Open about Undertaker Goldberg match. How angry I got at the fans for them having the audacity to go on social media and say that that was horrible or they messed up or whatever. I was like, you don't respect these people? So the character from 2009 to 2013, the Hall of Pain era, was me hating the fans. It was me being honest with how I felt about the way that I was portraying. Vince got me to portray how I truly felt. And I told him I didn't want to do it because I didn't want people to see me hate. I didn't want people to see me angry like that because I was basically being what people thought I was anyway, if that makes any sense to you. Because, you know, I'm a 6'4", 330 pound black dude, and I walk down the street and women change their purse to the other side. They move to the other side of the street like I'm going to eat somebody.
Yeah.
I'm a human being, and I didn't want to perpetuate a negative. I wanted to try to transcend the negative, and I realized that Vince was right, that I needed to scare everybody. And he played a practical joke on me to prove the point, to make me angry. And I was in Des Moines, and he ribbed everybody, but he did it specifically to unlock the monster in me, I guess, the way he described it. I had a match against Sin Cara, and I'm out there first. The music plays, no Sin Cara. They play the music again, no Sin Cara. I look at the referee, Scott Armstrong, and I said, man, what's going on? I think he retaping his knee or something. I don't know. He's like, Mark, I just don't know. Then somebody else's music plays. Then they play Rey Mysterio music. Then they play Vader. It's Vader. Vader has been retired from wrestling for like 6 years, 8 years at this point. And now I'm angry. I realize I'm being ribbed. And I say, you know what? The rib is on y'all. I'm not going nowhere. I get the microphone and I start talking about how I hate everybody.
This shoot?
Shoot. You bring me out here and embarrass me in front of all these people. It's a dark match. And I was like, you know what? It's funny. Y'all probably back there laughing, ha-ha. I said, let's see if you laugh when I get back there. And now I'm coming out of the ring and I go to Gorilla. It's ghost town. It ain't nobody back there. And I just start kicking and knocking shit over. I run to Vince's office. He gone. He in the limo. He on the way to the airfield. And I called him and I cussed his ass out. And I said, you wait till I see you. You're going to have to see me eventually. And I'm angry to the point to where I didn't care. I called my wife. I said, I'm done. No more for me. They done messed with me for the last time. Vince called me in the next week, and he was like, Big Mark, you coming to work? And I was like, no, I'm not coming to work. I was like, you didn't answer me last week when I called you. He's like, I just wanted you to calm down. I was like, Vince, you hurt my feelings. I was like, nobody's allowed to hurt my feelings. Nobody, not you, not nobody. And he said, well, that wasn't my intention. I wasn't trying to hurt your feelings. I was trying to make you mad. I was trying to kick you in the ass. And I was like, I don't understand that. I was like, you have to explain different to me. He said, I want you to come to Baltimore. Come to. I missed TV. I didn't go to Raw. So I flew to Baltimore for SmackDown. And we sat there in his office, and he said, he leaned forward, pulled his glasses down, and he was like, you were really mad. He said, oh, my God. He said, I want you to see something. And he called the people in the truck, and he said, hey, play that footage from last week. And he's kind of leaning forward, and he kind of smiling at me, half-ass smiling. And I'm looking at him, the sound comes on, I look at the monitor, and it's me, but I don't even recognize it. I don't even recognize that's me. I was angry. I was walking. I was pacing. That wasn't me. That was a monster. That was a mean person. That was somebody. I was stomping mad. I ain't never stomped mad like a little kid. I never in my life did that. That was probably the maddest I had ever been in my life. And he said, if you can be that guy, you can make a lot of money, which means that the business will be better and we all will make a lot of money. And I said, I can't control that. He said, yes, you can. you can control it. I'm going to help you control it. And he did. Hall of Pain era.
But that was just taking a shoot and working with it.
Yeah. 4 best years of my career and put me in the Hall of Fame.
But when you look back at it, and all I got is a recorder going, but I can see the emotion. I can feel the emotion coming out of you. But that was taken. I get what he was trying to do when he showed you the footage. But when you look back at that and you're like, yeah, he ribbed you or he made you mad. But when you saw it, it's taking a shoot, but trying to work it.
Yeah.
And riding really a fine line of a little of both, because I believed everything I did out there, but
I did at that point, and I had to control it.
Right.
Which was the biggest part of me not thinking I could. And I didn't want to perpetuate that. And
then with the understanding of when I looked at that and what you just told me, it's that was the intensity that he needed out of you.
Yeah.
And not about.
But that's what coaches do.
Yes.
That's what coaches do.
Yeah.
They push your buttons, they get you to respond, and they win championships. I guarantee you that there are guys that have been coached by Belichick and Popovich, Pat Riley, and the list of great coaches that you hear about. They didn't always do it kindly.
Right.
Because it probably was different. Some people you pat on the back, say, look, I need you to do this right there. And you might get it out of them. But for me, it took for me to be angry and to see what that felt like again. It'd been a long time since I felt like hate and anger. That's why I do my best not to let myself get angry, because it's hard for me to control that.
But once you've been in the business as long as you have, for that light to go on like that after that many years, it's like, it's a wake-up call, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, hey, man, I've been doing this. And you wanted the crowd's respect, but now this is that moment when you do the Hall of Pain run and put you in the Hall of Fame, you found the money. You was making money, but this is the real money.
Yeah,
drawing.
Yeah.
So
you're drawing for the business, and your name is on the posters, and people are coming to see you get a whooping. People wanted to see me get a whooping, and I'm like, who gonna give it to me? Was my mentality. It's like, you came to see me get a whooping? Now every week I had to change the narrative to stay angry. And I remember my son, Jacob, Dad, you know that kids ask me at school, are you mean like that to us? He said, no, man, my dad's nice, man. You could go. I remember that like it was yesterday, and I just started laughing because perception is reality. What people perceive you as is almost like people saying, hey, this is the exact truth. That's what people going to believe, is the perception. Like it's real, which is a wonderful thing in pro wrestling because it creates suspended belief. And in the comic books that people write about Batman and Superman and Iron Man and all of these characters, they write it. In wrestling, you perform it. There's no smoke. There's no strings that tie you to fly. When you fly, you fly. X-Pac, when he flew, he flew. When I wrestled Daniel Bryan and he flew, he actually flew. And Rey Mysterio, they flew because I told them, as long as I got a breath in my body, you're going to have a place to land. Trust me, I'm not going to let you crash and burn. The big guys, when we collided, we collided. I'm not going to cry that you hit me too hard. I can take it. Let's go. I got the main event with The Undertaker off the fact that there was nobody in the business that could put him in jeopardy except me. It was a great, great feeling. Those 4 to 5 years, did a lot. And at the end, I was still Mark Henry, but I was tagging, wearing red with MVP, and I would go and do this sometimes, and I would go back and forth. And at the end, it was like it was time for me to go.
Before it's time to go, and before we go, I think it was September 2013 when you won your world championship.
Yeah.
from Randy Orton.
Yep.
What does that mean to you?
I can never thank Randy enough because you're only as good as who you work with. Randy is damn good, as you know. Very easy, but I beat somebody to become champion. And that's what was even more impressive to the people that I was allowing to see the monster, that I was allowing to see the hate. It was for the fans. And I started to realize that I was not just entertaining them, but I was actually working for them. They needed somebody to hate, and I gave them that. And a lot of people played a part in getting them that entertainment. But ultimately, it came down to me being able to go and do that. And I took a lot of pride in the fact that leading up into winning the world championship from Randy, I beat Batista, I beat Big Show, I beat Rey Mysterio, I beat Daniel Bryan. I beat about 7 Hall of Famers in about a 9-month span, back to back to back to back. I got built. I did the work, but it was a build, and my win, it was on the backs of the guys that helped build me. The stuff that Big Show and Kane did, even the guys that were enhancement talent, there was a guy, Robert, he was a soundboard operator guy, and I don't know if people remember it, but he was standing up there, and I went up there, and I knocked all the stuff down, and I grabbed him, and I told him, I said, man, I'm gonna be charged up, and when I'm energized like that, I'm strong. I'm gonna try to throw you as flat and safe as I can. I was like, put your chin to your chest and just go. And I remember looking back at it, I knew where the padding was that I was throwing him. It was about 8 feet away from me. And I told him to move it out further because when I get charged, I'm going to be stronger. And I threw him with a 1/2 step and throw, and he went exactly 12 feet. Almost a free throw distance. Yeah. 3 feet from being from a free throw line to a basket. And I challenge anybody to go grab a 190-pound dude and throw him that far. I couldn't do that when I wasn't charged. Right. So that's one of the God-given gifts that I was able to channel my power. And luckily I was able to use it the right way. I didn't end up, doing something stupid and ending up locked up for my rest of my life.
But what did meaning, you talk about Randy, but what did meaning the world championship mean to you on a personal level or professional level for that?
Validation is the ultimate word. It means that Vince trusted me with the company to be the champion, to be there every day, to make every show, to do every pre-tape, to start the show, to finish the show, do all the pre-tapes and stuff in between, wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning and go to the radio station, go do the live TV feed, go to the children's hospital, and then come to the building at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, knowing I'm going to be in opening the show, be in a pre-main or main event, and then do the dark match. People don't realize how much goes into being champion. There's a lot of reasons why championship title runs are usually short, because it's hard to maintain that over a 2 or 3 year period. When you see a guy like you that was able to carry the title for 2 or 3 years in a row, I don't know how the hell you did it. And Dwayne and Ric Flair, Undertaker, I don't know how they did it. I don't know how y'all did it. I did it for 4 years. Y'all did it for like 15 years. And consecutive years. I had breaks in between my titles. But that
validation you speak of, I mean, it's what you wanted from the weightlifters, the strongman. You got it from the crowd. And when you got it from the old man, or from the company, I mean, that was
the ultimate stamp.
And obviously, Hall of Fame is going to go right there as well.
Yeah.
Validation, which is what it seemed like
that's what I've worked
for that.
Yeah.
That's
I want to be.
Validation stage.
I got the validation, and holding that championship over my head, pretty damn sweet. Next to my kids being born, I don't know if I've ever felt a more prideful and accomplished feeling. People say, man, you went to the Olympic Games, you won world championships, and I did that by myself to an extent with my body, but with wrestling, it was a lot of moving parts. And for all of them stars to align and for that to happen, it was a lot of work, but it was so worth it.
People get impassioned saying, hey, it's work. It's work. Blow it off as work. It's champions work. The business might be a work, but there's certain things that are shoot, and there's a reason behind why a particular decision is made, and it's for all the things you just stated. So to echo off what you just said, holding that damn thing up, man, when I got a chance to hold that summit up on 6 different occasions, or the IC or whatever it was,
it was validation.
Damn right, that's what
for your work
for.
And for your level of intelligence.
Yeah.
You ain't never going to be proud if you ain't proud of being champion, because it's funny that all the times that I've been interviewed, one, I've never talked about Vince. I can't believe that all of that came out. But I've also never factored all of the things together when all I was doing was looking for validation. I was looking for people to give me my just due. And if I didn't get it, my feelings got hurt, which is ultimately the worst thing that can happen to me, because it's going to make me go to the gym for 5 hours a day until I win. And I've had my validation, like, in everything that I've ever done. And it didn't all make me millions and millions of dollars. Wrestling did really good by me. And my kids are going to go to good schools, and they're exposed to a world that they probably would have never been otherwise, because the other sports that I did, powerlifting, weightlifting, and strongman, there's not millions of dollars to be made in those sports. I did it out of love. And all I wanted was them sports and to love me back. And, like, that's what I got from wrestling. I got wrestling love me back.
You're in the Hall of Fame. Your wife just called. You got to pick your son up. You gave me 2 hours out of your day. Got to do your show. Thanks for having me on your show. Thank you for giving me so much time. Is there anything you'd like to say in closing, or something that we didn't cover that you would like to cover, or are we good here?
The main thing is I'm going to say this about you, as far as all of the guys that I've been around in my wrestling career. Me and D-Lo had the most fun with you. And we always joke around and stuff, and D-Lo would be like, man, Mark, I can't leave the building. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? Let's go. And he's like, I didn't take a stunner today. And I'm like, get out of here, man. Let's go. And he's like, no, serious. Come on, let's go take a stunner. Because we both marks. Me literally and him figuratively.
Yeah.
And we would always come and we would massage your shoulder, like, put a chin in. And he's, no, I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling it.
I would be somewhere in a building, and I'd be talking to somebody, and Mark or Dilo would come from behind me, and they'd start giving me the karate chops on my right trap, like they're getting me ready, because that's where they're going to place their chin to take a stunner. And I'd work it, and I'd say, not yet. And they start massaging my trap, and cinch their chin down. I say, yeah, it feels good. And I'd jump up and down and land on my feet, but it'd be a gimmick stunner in the dressing room. I don't know how many times you still do that to me to this day.
Still to this day. Like D-Lo.
I don't even know you're in the building, and someone sneak up behind me and start tapping me on the trap. I said, I know it's Mark Henry, stunner.
And me and D-Lo, we was together at an appearance the other day in Richmond, Virginia. We had a conversation about that, like how much fun it was to be around the business during the Attitude Era, and even now being older guys and having a relationship with somebody that's, on the Mount Rushmore wrestling. And I don't know if you said that it's like you can't see the forest for the trees, and like you get inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2009, and you don't always give yourself that validation that we were just talking about. And I hope that you are able to do that, because like you were special to the business. There ain't been many. I mean, all of us had played our role, as Ron said. Know your role. We all had our role, but there's only one Mount Rushmore. There's only one top 10. And people's top 10 varies according to who they love the most or who had the most influence on them or whatever. But I've never heard a top 10 that didn't have you in it. That's crazy. That's where it's at, man. I'm proud to know you.
Thank you very much. And now I guess when you put it like that, now I know how all of your weightlifting achievements, because you're on top 10 everything. So I never thought about it like that, but I never blow smoke up my ass. My mama told me a long time ago, man, they always asked me, said, man, because most people say I was kind of always the same guy at the end that I was in the beginning. And I always been a little crazy too. But my mom always said, man, the way we was raised, he goes, I don't care what you do, don't you ever get a big head.
Yeah.
We kept everything in perspective. She said, as soon as you get something, it can be taken from you. And I got proven to me when I got dropped on my head. You go from being the hottest thing on 2 feet to on the sideline. Shit, so I kept everything in perspective. But I ain't going to sit here and blow smoke up my ass. I got to say, last night I was sitting in my hotel. This was a short notice on this podcast. I'm honored to talk to you. And I was like, after I started trying to research, I said, I cannot do Mark a disservice by not having studied everything that he's done, but he's done so much. I'm just going to do the best I can. This has to be, and I'm telling you like it is, this is probably one of the favorite podcasts I've ever done. To sit across from you and feel, I'm a feel guy, to feel what I felt when you're talking, and to hear some of the knowledge that you dropped. I hope everybody listening to this son bitch enjoys it as much as I did doing it. So, thank you.
I appreciate you, Steve.
We here at the Steve Austin Show have a favorite 4-letter F word, free. That's why it's our privilege to introduce you to your new favorite streaming service, Pluto TV. Believe us, you're going to dig it. Pluto TV is the leading free streaming television service. Watch over 100 TV channels and thousands of movies on demand, all completely free. There's also a ton of options for sports, pro wrestling, and MMA available. Pluto TV never asks for a credit card. You don't even have to sign up to watch free. Pluto TV is the easy and completely legal way to watch your favorite TV shows and hit movies for free. And the best part, you can download Pluto TV for free on all your favorite devices today, including your phone, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Apple TV, smart TVs, PlayStation, and anywhere else you stream. What are you waiting for? Never pay for TV again by downloading Pluto TV. Get more info at Pluto.tv. All right, everybody, give me the go-home cue, so I'm going to wrap up this podcast and ride off in sunset. But before I do that, I want to thank my guest, Mark Henry, world's strongest man and WWE Hall of Famer, for having me down there at the iHeart Studios where he does his morning radio show, Busted Open. I believe they are #1 on the airwaves 5 days a week, so check out their show. Always talking about everything pro wrestling and always putting a good spin on the business. I had a fantastic time hanging out with Mark, and like I said, I could have talked to the man all day. He's got stories for days, and he comes from the heart. And Mark is the real deal. If things ever go bad, I want Mark on my side. So thank you, Mark, for helping me out. No, I never got a chance to talk to Earl Campbell. I had my time frames messed up. He was not going to get back in town until Wednesday, and I left Saturday night after speaking with Mark and checking out those cars. So hopefully I get a chance to get down there and talk to Earl again, and maybe even Mark again, because I'd love to keep talking to him. Earl Campbell's one of my favorite running backs in the history of the sport of football, and that's the bottom line. If you missed my podcast last week, I talked with All Elite Wrestling President Tony Khan and had a fantastic conversation with him. I took a 6-month break from podcasting for various reasons. Maybe on the next show or the show after that, I'll have a bullshit session where I'll tell you, all the things that I've been up to and why I've been gone as long as I have been. One of the reasons I was gone, I filmed my new show for the USA Network, Straight Up Steve Austin. The season premiere is August 12th, and it will be on right after Monday Night Raw, so get ready to set your DVR. This show is where I hang out with some celebrity guests. We do some neat activities, get to know them, and have conversation. It's a 30-minute show. I appreciate the opportunity given to me by the USA Network. Hopefully enough people will watch this show so we can get season 2 out of it and continue raising hell and having a good time. Please check out Straight Up Steve Austin, August 12th for the season premiere after Monday Night Raw. Hey, don't forget to rate and review the Steve Austin Show on Apple Podcasts and tell your friends to check us out. And if you want to reach me here on the podcast, send an email to questions@steveaustinshow.com. Folks, I'm also in the beer business. I happen to have the formula for the best IPA on the planet. It is Broken Skull IPA from El Segundo Brewing Company. And you can get Broken Skull IPA at Whole Foods and Total Wines if you live in California, or you can have it shipped to you via the internet. But if you ain't in Cali, you might be SOL. If you're looking for a badass pocket knife, I have two. The Cold Steel Broken Skull knife is a high-end, super sharp, unbelievable knife. And the working man's knife, high quality, cheaper price point. Find them at my Amazon store. Amazon has the best price of both knives. Or just go to amazon.com/shop/Steve Austin, or go directly to the Cold Steel Knives website and check out all their badass stuff. Folks, if I'm out in the woods, I will be riding the Kawasaki, and that's the bottom line. That's what I ride. I want to say one more thank you to all the fine sponsors of the Steve Austin Show, especially BetOnline.ag. They've been sticking with me for day one. Geico, thank you. CreditRepair.com, thanks for jumping on board. TrueCar has been there forever. Pluto TV, new to the show. That's how I'm able to do this podcast for you twice a week for free. Please support them because they support us. And if you need more info on my sponsors, check out the show description to this episode for details. Folks, until next time, I try to round up my next guest to open up a can of audio whoop ass. My name is Steve Austin, and I will catch your ass down the road.
This has been a Podcast One production. Download new episodes of The Steve Austin Show every Tuesday at PodcastOne.com. That's PodcastOne.com.